a person in college by the name of Logan Paul. He spent anywhere from 2 to 3 years making videos every day out of college, drive across the country to visit some of his other influencer friends who also had followings to collaborate on the posts together. And he built up this large following, and he was getting $200,000 for an advertisement, which is the same type of cost for a product placement on like NBC. And when you think about it, Logan Paul owns a Logan Paul channel, and NBC is a publicly traded company. And what happened here is that the people have become their own networks.
Hey everyone, welcome to Marketing Movers. Today we have Alex Sunshine, the founder of Rising Suns Agency. They're a social media influencer agency that's worked with companies like Pfizer, DraftKings, Bumble, and they have a super talented roster of creators that they work with. Alex has some unique insights on the space and the direction that he thinks it's headed, so we're excited to dive deeper, and we're happy to have you on the show, Alex. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Sky. Appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Where I'd love to start the conversation off today is actually with your story, to give the listeners here a little bit of context on who you are, how Rising Suns came to be. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and the founding story of the agency?
Absolutely. So I founded Rising Suns Agency in 2019 when I noticed a real need between brand and influencer interface. This wasn't, I don't want to say like this was just something I noticed on like a news report and just like, oh, I'm going to start this agency in the influencer space because it's a growing industry. I actually was dating an influencer before I started the company, and kind of picked it up organically that way by looking at her social platforms out of college. And I noticed that she had 100,000 followers on her Instagram account, and she wasn't really giving a lot of attention to it. At the time, she had a PR job at a big fashion boutique company, and I knew what she was making there, and there was nothing wrong with it. But I saw what type of sponsorship deals she could be getting on her Instagram. And as a natural entrepreneurial person that, had a knack for looking for business opportunities at the time as my own side hustles, I'm like, this is something worth pursuing. And I ended up studying the space in vivid detail, not just her, but some of the other bigger creators in the space. At the time, this was around 2016, 2017, like Logan Paul and Amanda Cirne and David, some of these creators that this was like really when the creator economy was more about like just like number of followers and popularity contests and like, oh my God, like these people have over 1 million followers, like they were a big deal just because of their following. And it wasn't so much about where the space is now, where it's more about, niche following or community interest, which we'll get into later in the interview. And when I studied it, the fundamental shift that I saw in media, and this is, by the way, someone that had no real media experience outside of a bachelor's degree, like just really, again, maybe just like making very simple conclusions here, that a person in college by the name of Logan Paul, he spent maybe anywhere from 2 to 3 years making videos every day out of college. And, he would drive across the country to visit some of his other influencer friends who also had followings to collaborate on the posts together. And he built up this large following. And you think to yourself, this is not a small thing. This is a large thing, because what's happening here is that he was getting $200,000 for an advertisement, which is the same type of cost for a product placement on like NBC. And when you think about it, Logan Paul owns a Logan Paul channel, and NBC is owned a large, it's a publicly traded company. There's a lot of employees, and those ads pay for a lot of people. And what happened here is that the people have become their own networks. The shift in media has went from media conglomerates and big companies to everyday people. And the source of information is not coming from a group of people anymore, where the source of information is coming from single people. And now everybody's held accountable for what they're saying. And obviously that's just from that's just from like the fundamental idea of like how we're absorbing information in today's economy. It's now very decentralized, but from peer to peer. But also the key thing right now is that all of these people in the influencer economy right now are doing similar things in different verticals, different niches. And NBC media companies like NBC are, again, they're going to exist in different formats, but the future of it won't be as popular. And I started the company recognizing, that if Logan Paul is going to do something like what he just did in 2 years, there's going to be 50 million creators that are going to be looking to do the same thing. And who's going to help them? Who's going to work with them? who's going to help them monetize their channels, who's going to get them sponsorship deals, who's going to provide an infrastructure to support them. And while I didn't have all the answers then, I still don't have all the answers. I knew that I had to start this because somebody's got to do something. And I knew there were other companies in traditional talent agency models that were still working, in the big spaces of music and entertainment and working with athletes. But what they didn't have was an infrastructure to really support these creators at scale. And that's the project I undertook at the time.
So how did you get started, especially as someone who didn't have the background? You clearly have a big vision for the company now after being in the space for years and figuring it out. But I'm sure it was intimidating initially, or you're like, how do I even get started on this? How do I get a client? How do I meet with these creators? What were the early days like?
Yeah, so the early days were extremely challenging. I mean, they're still challenging, but the extremely challenging part about this is, and the way I try to describe it, it's not what the product is. Like the product is very high quality, in my opinion, which is simply people are voicing their opinions, their perspectives, their interests online. They're building followings and a community online of people that share similar interests. That's extremely powerful. So the product is really strong. What's difficult and the real challenge is how brands and even agencies who've been doing marketing and done PR and doing all these things for 100 years, they're still operating in a world where it's not caught up to what's actually happening with this shift that I'm talking about, where we're going from big media companies, TV commercials, billboards, magazine, whatever it might be, to this creator economy. And when people that are controlling the budgets aren't putting it in the right places, the challenge is for creators and creators agents like myself is what type of leverage do we have right now, and is it something where we just have to play the waiting game, where the market will continue? It's grown because it's still relatively small compared to some of the other size of the market share in other industries and in marketing. But do we play the waiting game? Do we make it our own? Meaning, do we just make our own products, start our own brands, which I've also seen to be extremely successful. Look at Logan Paul. He launched Prime, and he didn't just launch Prime because he wanted to make a lot of money with Prime and there was more. He understood that brands, he got his Walmart deals and stuff, but he understood that the collective economy wasn't really moving towards this at scale, and he wanted something of his own. He knew he would make more money doing it. He knew there was a risk, and he partnered with some of the biggest distributors. Like Congo Brands was they had all the distribution behind that. So he was a really smart, savvy business person to identify, not just working with any single manufacturer. They had already found someone with distribution. So between his marketing channel and a distributor that had all these large connections and, was pretty much covering the States and all the countries around the world, it was perfect combo for it to blow up. But I think that at the end of the day is, how do we empower creators that are at the mercy of an industry still that's kind of a dinosaur and still being outdated, and they're just waiting for some of the newer brands and newer companies to come into the space. And that's what the most of the economy has been reliant on. Was really, if you look at some of the most successful brands, especially the ones that have leveraged influencer marketing, a lot of them were founded around the same time of influencer marketing. So when they were creating their marketing strategies, this was something that was key and important to them, to identify this lever. They realized that it was working, and they're like, you know what, let's just use most of our marketing budget for this. And in reality, it's the brands that have been around for a long time, a lot of big money, big company brands, not haven't adjusted their strategies yet, right? The bigger the company is, the slower it is for them to adjust. And the creators are paying that price now, but it won't be for long, especially as the brands that have participated continue to grow. It's only a matter of time. And also these marketing jobs are being handed out to these big companies, to Gen Z or millennials or younger people. They know where their budget should go. So it's a growing space. The challenge has been explaining the value prop to brands and what this is, and it's not that it's new, but it's not that new, right? This has been going on now for well over a decade. But in the grand scheme of things, all the other forms of marketing mediums have been going on for 100 years. So it's new
Right.
in comparison, right? But it's only a matter of time.
And how do you think creators should be thinking about their business and preparing for this shift?
So for starters, and this is really important to any person or any business person or any entrepreneur, 1099, doesn't matter. You have to diversify, right? Like at the end of the day, like I say this, like you can um, wait and give leverage to the counterparty or take control over what you have. And that means like what are things that you can do where you're not at the mercy of a counterparty? And that's what Logan Paul did. He started his own brand. He created his own physical products. He, you sell exclusive content. You can write a book. Like you can, there's things that you can do that are controllable. Like those are things that it's in your control that you can monetize. And I recommend always keeping those options on the table, no matter what the scenario is. And the fortunate news here is like whether the brands have the budget or they don't, you're still making money. And when it does open up, which inevitably I think it will, you'll now have diversified portfolio revenue. So um, the thing is, if you're just a creator who's simply just a marketer for other people's stuff, you might fall victim to the shortfall of what's happening right now. I mean, and it's not to say that the budgets and the market isn't growing, because it is, but I think it gets a whole lot different once bigger companies that have been those 100-year companies are like starting to unload their budgets that are going towards NBC or other TV commercials, cable net. We're at the wrong places. Pretty much is my point. Once it comes over, it's game over. Really, and the creators are all going to win.
One of the things that really struck me about the first conversation that we had was your very like human-centered approach or philosophy to how you think about your business, interacting with creators, the direction that the industry is going, especially in a time where everyone's talking about how AI is going to take over everything that we do. It seems like you have a different perspective on the role that technology should play or is going to play in the space. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I always say this. I'm not anti-technology. Like I think AI is great. I think technology is great. I think it propels things forward. But with the widespread of technology right now, it's actually making the human-centered approach more valuable, right? Because there's such a supply of AI and tech, and like, but we're kind of losing, tale as old as time stuff of character, of human connection, human experiences. And if you think about a lot of the things that make you want to buy a product or service, it's not based on artificial intelligence or technology, right? Like even a creator, like what can AI tell me about a good place to eat dinner at for a restaurant? Like they can't do a food review. Like they can't connect on a human level about family. Like the best brands in the world can stimulate an ethos in their products, right? And they can, in their content, create human connection. It's the best forms of advertising, right? So even understanding that essential ingredient, it's like AI and tech can help as a tool, but it doesn't really help uh, create better performance from consumer habits with your product or brand or service. So um, as an agency for us, while we understand that's the core ingredient for the actual advertising, it also goes a step further because creators have to make decisions on what they're doing in their careers, and they also need a helping hand and kind of I don't want to say in a corny way like a family, but like they really do need people in their corners that they're especially through turbulent times, like if the economy's not good or they're not getting brand deals, like they need strategies, and it's not something that's going to come from AI or tech, and it's not going to just come from submitting a brand campaign through a platform and like just being treated like a sheep, right? Like there is a human component to this. They need customized strategies. They need tailored approaches. They need to make decisions with people that have been in the space and understand the space. Um, and while there's a role for tech and AI, I just don't see it as something that's the sole replacement. This is common in a lot of industries right now. If it's for video editing, like nobody wants to sit there and edit their own videos right now. Like sure, like that works really well. Like, or if it's there's some. I went to a summit last year where they talked about how like for videos where you want to transcribe into like 100 or 200 different languages, like great, AI can do that. Like that's fantastic for creators, right? But if you're gonna like try to put into ChatGPT like what the valuation of this brand deal should be, or should I use this product, or they can't do that because they don't know everything about the companies they're promoting. They don't know everything about the products. They can't. It's not opinionated. It's not based on any underlying of the community they're serving, right? Like in understanding people. It doesn't have that core function yet, and with that in mind, like it just requires a human-centered approach still.
And it sounds like this philosophy really plays into how you're or where you're taking the company, ideas that you have for how to start supporting creators better. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your ideas there?
Sure. So one of the biggest things I talk about in the space is how the industry is not built to really serve creators. In fact, if you look at technology specifically, it's actually just built to I don't want to say celebrate, but enhance brand performance, enhance their agendas. And a lot of the times, while creators can benefit from that, a lot of the times they're not really being thought of in the process of who's thinking about them, who's representing them, where their interests in their careers. Like, when a AI company or even a tech platform or even just an agency sells a brand, right? They're not thinking about like, oh, like is creator burnout happening, which is a real common issue. Like creators are like, again, they're making too many videos. Like they might not have a long life expectancy. They're not thinking about the payment process issues that they're dealing with, where the average creator doesn't see payment for 4 months after a post goes live, or they don't think about like the compensation for creators when in reality like they're the ones kind of building these brands, right?
Right.
So I think fundamentally right now there's a disconnect between brands and influencers, and we need to, as an agency and I think as an industry, serve the creator community more by providing more infrastructures, and whether it's content studios, whether it's representation at scale. So, like I said, the main big agencies only serve main Hollywood and New York and LA. They don't serve the average creator out of Oklahoma or Oregon, right? They're, like I said, those are the people that are in the tech bubble of spreadsheets. They're not getting dedicated reps, and if they think they have a dedicated rep, a lot of the times it's one person that's working with 100+ creators, and it's not really dedicated. So how do you build something with people, right? Thinking human-centered approach with people at scale to help these creators. Um, Taking away from the impact of like, wait a second, how can you invest in a person to help a creator who might not be hitting that $100,000 a year threshold, right? Like, what's the economics of that? And the reality is, well, and this is how I see it, because it's like, if you want to make a crazy comparison, but like real estate, maybe it's not worth 100,000 a year right now, but with the proper resources and guidance and expertise, that's what they're going to be worth tomorrow and more. So invest in that. Otherwise, it just like a flower without water will die out. I think that there's like I said, there's 50 million creators. There's really no company that has truly their best interests at heart. And the ones that do, and they are out there, they're not really built for scale right now.
Mm.
And there's a lot of small shops, and the proof is in the pudding that a lot of them are probably working with agencies as one of 100 rather than one of five or one of 10. And I think that's where things have to kind of shift.
That's super interesting, especially you kind of read my mind on like, well, what's the business model behind that and how do the numbers start to work? Um, where I'd love to take the conversation next actually is a little bit different, but it's around growth for your own agency over the last, you guys have been in business now since 2019. What strategies have you guys implemented for yourselves to either meet with brands and get your foot in the door or find creators that you think are a good fit?
Sure. So this game is largely based on your reputation and what creators are going to say about you. Like if you're delivering for them and getting them brand partnership deals and providing a good service and actually having strong value prop. So I think when you look at Rising Sun's agency or any other company that's similar to us, and you look at the roster, it's like, how did you get all these creators to sign on board with you, and how do you where do you even begin? And the reality is like, and I say this to my reps, but like, you should look at one creator that you were able to get in contact with, whether it was again through an event, through Instagram DM, LinkedIn, having a good phone call, but like past the phone call, like doing good work for them. Because if you have one really good creator that you could do good work for, multiply that by 10. Because if you do good work for one, they talk. They're not. This is not a space of competition where like, oh, I got this good agent, I'm going to keep him to myself. It's more along the lines of like the creators have such a tight network where they want to help each other, especially ones that are in a similar place in terms of metrics or the time they've been doing this for. So Um, if you look at for example, if you look at a company that has 100 creators, they probably got out there and found 10 really good ones and they serviced them really well, and 90 of them came in organically. Like those should be the metrics if they're not. Um, only recently have we really started to build a true funnel of recruitment of creators because we know they're getting hit up all the time. We know they have a lot of different offers. A lot of them, again, there's a lot of creators just want to work like non-exclusively. Like they'll say, "Oh, I'll work with your agency and this agency and that agency." And that's fine. Um, but the ones where you could actually just deliver for the ones you have and do good work, like 10 times it will follow back and they'll knock on your door. And I think that's realistically the trick. It's a lot more warm. And that's been our way to growing. And we kind of put it out there. I think I'm one of the few agencies for whatever reason. Like you look at CAA or WME and all these big companies, like you would think for such big companies they would do so much with their social media, but they just don't. We're starting to invest in our own social media. We're a small guy. Like why is a small guy investing in social media? But we're doing it because like that is going to be the place when creators check us out. Like they want to know who we work with, what collaborations we're doing, and the fact that we should be able to handle. If we're going to work with social media creators, we should be able to handle social media too. So I do think it's just positioning ourselves to really catch a wave here and just do good quality work, and that will sell itself and speak for itself. Instead of just always knocking on doors. I prefer we knock on the doors of brands all the time, which is what we do, and deliver for our creators. And
That makes
that's more,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys do to knock on the doors of brands? Are you guys doing like cold emails, LinkedIn? How does that work?
There's two avenues in terms of who. So it's brands and agencies, really, right? Like a lot of these brands have agencies that manage their marketing budgets or handle their PR services or whatever the case might be. So we can reach out directly to brands, which we do, but we could also reach out to these agencies. And over the years, when you do so many collaborations, you build a lot of these relationships that become a lot more warm after you've done campaigns with them already. So we're consistently checking back in with them in a reasonable manner, right? Maybe every 1 to 2 months, just like seeing if anything's going on in terms of campaigns. Um, we're always on the lookout for more brands. We do a lot of stuff on basic stuff that I'm sure is similar in most industries: cold email, LinkedIn sales nav, Instagram DMs to our channels that we're investing in. We're not reinventing the wheel too much in that sense. I think that's just the prospecting lead funnel part, right? It's what you do from there that can make you, I think, stand out. So, and it could be through events as well. We made a lot of good connections through events and stuff. It's a lot more warm in person. Um, I think it's really where we're trying to innovate because I think anybody could say something to someone on a phone call, right? When you sign a talent, it's what are you actually doing once you have the relationship? I kind of compare it to like a marriage. Like
Right.
you could, great, you had a good proposal, you got married, you've invested all this money into a wedding, right? And but that's just like the first day of the rest of your life, right? Like that's what are you going to do after that, right? Not when everybody's kind of looking or advertising who you signed. It's did you deliver for them, and you could talk to creators after a year with an agency and they could tell you what their experiences were. And that's the most important part, right? Um, so that's kind of
What do
been
you
our,
think are what do you think are some of the fundamentals as you think about like having that good delivery? What are the key components for you guys?
um,
How does your process work?
I would say under promising and over delivering. So a lot of times when people, we, we always talk about like the long term, like we don't like talk in terms of like quarter by quarter, month by month. Or I mean, it's important. We actually talk, and it's different for every creator. Like every creator has a different goal or mission, or like you have to unlock those things, right? You can't make assumptions, or because I could try to make assumptions on everyone. I'll probably be wrong every time because there's so many things. But like we have creators who like listen, like they literally just want to get their bills paid for every month, and like then they want to just build towards a long term. Like we love those creators. Like we want a creator who actually believes that we have a chef client who believes he could be the next Bobby Flay. That's fantastic for us. Like that's something we could get behind because we're actually building towards something and accomplishing something together, and building a hopefully a media figurehead in the chef space. That's we have some clients that just earn me as much brand deals as possible. I don't care what the ad frequency is, like, and we don't hate that. We want to make money too. I mean, but we have to serve those needs, and we give them realistic expectations of this is what the valuation is of typically a post or story. Assume that you do have a high ad frequency. You're still kind of capped here. Um, assume that there's going to be some brands that can only partner with you if you have an exclusivity clause. So wipe out this category now. Like you have to kind of go through like the possibilities, and then you say, and then at the end of that call, we'll probably say like on a conservative measure, assuming like maybe half of this happens, right? Like, and that's what we kind of outline, and with that in mind, we get to the year and we projected what happened. And then there's just creators in general. Some creators just want um, resources to a PR person. They just want third party press. They just want to grow their channel.
Hmm.
They probably already made their money or have money, and like they're just more concerned about growth and growing their, like you get everybody's different in the space. But I would say 9 times out of 10, it's really just it comes down to sponsorship revenue or brand affinity. Like obviously, which brands are partnering with matters to them, right? You can go through all the different buckets, right? Um, but yeah, I think it just depends on the creator, and we just setting realistic expectations. And um, if we can retain creators for, I have creators since I started on day one that've been with us for 5 years. If I can get clients like that, I know we're in a good spot.
Right. This might be a tough question to answer because it is so dependent on the creator. But let's say I'm a creator, I have like a niche or a space that I'm interested in, and I know that I want to, to some degree, I want to build a business behind this audience that I'm hypothetically going to build. I don't know what services I would provide, what product I would sell. How do you recommend? I almost like go through that process of like discovery. Do I, post a bunch of different kind of like subtopics that are related to that niche to see where's the demand coming from? What are people most interested in? Do I just pick right out the gate and kind of double down and make it work? How should I think about like trying to figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, and this is something that I always tell creators, but like a lot of times I look at their posts and they're like, I do this, this, and this post, and it does really, really well, right? And I don't care to find out what a different post would do, especially if it doesn't do well. But like the reality is like you should be doing all your different ideas, right? Like there's really creators don't realize this, but and I understand there's like the average impressions. I understand there's a typical price if a post has lower view. I get that. But for the most part, if you think about it tangibly, like you're much better off trying to explore different avenues and seeing, like you said, the feedback. And even if the view count's lower, like seeing how like your audience responds, like even if you get comments or DMs because you shared something that was different than what you're typically sharing, now you're collecting information on what your consumers and your followers actually want from you. Um, Not just from a product sale, like a sales, but like also from like the type of content they want, right? Like you, just because like you have a specific type of post doing well all the time doesn't mean some other forms of content won't do really well. Like they follow you for you too. Like as much as the content you make, like your channel has value, it has a brand. Um, don't surprise yourself if there's other forms of content that you can make that will be of value to them. And taking the approach of not trying to find out is to me actually a sign of potentially losing steam, right? You have to kind of evolve a little bit and test a little. I understand like if you're, like I said, like in our space, they look at average and right. Like if you have a post that goes lower, a brand will literally say like give you lesser offers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're like in their head, like why would I do that content? But in the
Right.
long run, if you can build other avenues for different styles of content, you have a lot much more in your arsenal to pull from to actually build something sustainable for not just one type of audience, but maybe multiple types in that niche as well. I'm sure everybody follows a content creator they like, where like maybe 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 videos is something that they actually follow you for. So they'll keep following you, but they'll tune in a third of the time. But if you're only posting one type of thing that they just don't like, you're just going to lose that person's attention. So it's kind of,
Mm.
I just see it like making the comparison to like a network, but like sometimes like there's certain shows you like on that network, right? And you're not going to not tune into the channel just because there's a show you don't, right? Like you're always going to check for something you might like or something new, right? Like you might not be on a certain streaming platform, but then they've released this new type of show and now you're signing up. And I see it no different with creators. I think you have to have different styles of, not like random, but test stuff out and let them, they follow you at the end of the day, not just your content. Um,
Right. Right.
just be honest with your consumers, and you're not really losing much, you know?
And it sounds like, and I might be misunderstanding this, but it sounds like what you're saying as well, like is a smart strategy for the creators, is to not just focus on like the front end, vanity metrics in a sense, um, because when you're having those conversations with the brands, if like the only core focus that you have, and I don't want to say the only to downplay anything, but if like the only thing you have are like these brand partnerships where you're selling your media, for lack of a better term, and you don't have the business behind it, then you don't have any leverage and you don't have as much control over like your outcomes. Is that the right way to think about it from your perspective?
100%. I think that's exactly. It's the vanity metrics are their valuations, right, for brands, um, but it's like if you think about the long term game, and this is where I go back to like some creators, like they're like focus on how much they make month over month, quarter over quarter. But like if you look at the long term value of your platform, which is your asset, like you should know everything about it, right? Like you should be collecting information. Like the fact of the matter is like if you're not going to post that piece of content, not because you know it's going to flop, but because you actually don't know if it how well it will do. Like that's a reason to post it. If you posted content, it's like it just didn't work, or they were turned off, or they don't. I'm not going to tell you to keep posting that same piece of content, right? I'm just going to tell you like now you know, and you
Right.
need to kind of if you're worried about people that are like going to unfollow you or this or that, like it's just the wrong person to be on your account anyway, right? Like, I mean, you see a lot of creators like say that, like, if you don't want to be here, just unfollow the page because they don't even want those people on the page. They don't want that negative energy, right? They got a lot of followers. Like, they just want the right people and finding people that appreciate them and their content and are supportive of it. So I just say like the fact of the matter is, especially if you don't know how the content perform, go live with it. Like you said, don't worry about the vanity metrics too much, at least in the short term.
We say the same thing for us with our clients. It's like we can like hyper focus on this, like, cold email or this. And at the end of the day, we just have to put our work to market and let the market speak back to us. And we could
Yes.
vacillate over it all the time, but it's not going to do us any good. One thing I'm curious about, you talked about, and this is kind of going back maybe 5 or 10 minutes where you were like, if the economy's not good or whatever it is, like these creators need a strategy.
Yeah.
They need someone to support them in creating that strategy. What does that mean? How do you think about the creation of a strategy for a creator?
So I see the strategy like, and this is the thing. Like, I think a lot of people look at my agency or look at me and like, oh, you're the social media expert, the social media guru, and I really like kind of correct them and saying like, listen, I, I'm in the space, but I'm in the creators. I'm not in the digital ad space. I'm in the creator space, and like my job to them is to not disrupt their content strategy too much. Like in the case of what I shared before, like I will happily tell them like strategically, like you should know everything you need to know about your creators, but like I wouldn't even tell you the type of content. Like I will tell you if they're like, hey, Alex, I've been thinking of making this piece of content. I will say, go do it because you don't know. Like that's different. That's strategy, and like anything really outside of that content platform, like strategic, like that's what we're here for. So like if it's finance, if it's your business partnerships, if it's recognizing what your income is, and like we're not getting brand partnership revenue, we should be doing this, and this instead right now. We should make and all the revenue stream, digital content, books. You can do giveaways, you can do it events or speaking, like whatever it might be, from a monetary standpoint to support what you're doing. Launching a podcast, like you can get extremely quick cross collaborating with other creators, right? Like there's very simple things like that they just don't have time to check, that we can do to make sure that they're trending the right direction from a growth standpoint in terms of metrics, from a earnings perspective, and actually building out a plan, like a strategy where it's not reactive, it's just proactive. Like this is the path you should be on for the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years, right? And I tell them this all the time, but like if something were to happen to social media, what does Sky Snade stand for? Like the reality is if something did happen to your social platform, but you had this brand and say you went to the metaverse or you went somewhere else, like will people follow you there? And the truth of the matter is if your platform is strong enough, it's the answer is yes. And our agency, because that's why I always try to correct people about the social media stigma, our agency is going to support you wherever you go, right? Like we're going to be there to like wherever your consumers are going, like we're going to help you build a business around that, right? And make sure you're in the right hands and you're doing the right things with your platform. So that's why I try to put like a very hard emphasis. I just recognize social media as the new medium of getting to the consumer right now, which is what it is, and it is a fundamental shift in like instead of working for a large corporation, we're working for people. people in their businesses. And now that in this transition, they need guidance and help. Like, and even if they knew every, like we can give them all the information in the world, like what business, of which they are, their business doesn't need extra helping hands, right? Like even just having a team behind them, right? I'm an agent. I have a team behind me in my agency because we have to put a team together for the creators, right? Like it's a fundamental need. There's a fundamental value prop. So if we can empower them with information, great. If we can just already on the same page, and I work with a lot of creators who are just way smarter than us, and like they're just light years ahead of us, and like we learn from them, and there's probably nothing we could teach them, or but like they then they just need helping hands with it because it's just too much. So, and that's fine too. We don't have to know more than them, or just giving them extra support, so they can achieve what they need, really, so they can achieve where they need to go. um, so I think we're all learning, we're all going to conferences, I think there's so much opportunity for innovation in the space. So that's something that I pride ourselves on right now, is like what we want to do in this space. Like there's a lot of, our wheels are turning. I'm still, the people I'm bringing into the space right now, or my agency right now, I'm still getting them up to elementary level stuff from what I learned over the last 5 or 6 years. But if I can build a culture of everything I know in the agency, like, and we can really grow into a competitive place, like I think there's a lot of innovation we can work on together that continue to mold the space, continue to be part of a group of people writing the textbook in this space right now, because there is nothing really at universities. I've attended a few lectures at some larger brand. I won't specify names, but like larger, and I think they're really good courses. But um, I just find it hard to believe to teach a course without the experience right now. Um, it's like, because they're, and I say that like even if they're actually in it, because like I can't sit here and say for even 6 years that's real experience. Like any real case study, any real experience on industry, like it is the 25, 50, 100 years of information, right? Like that's how you build
Yeah.
really accurate conclusions. Like it's still young, it's still changing. I mean, literally Zuckerberg, like they change the algorithm every week. So like there's no way to actually cement this is the strategy when it's consistently evolving. So you have to be consistently learning, right? There is no stagnant, like we have it figured out. It's not, no agency can say that.
Right.
So
It sounds like if I'm kind of like trying to see the forest through the trees in
yeah,
your philosophy here too, because you said some interesting stuff where it's like if your social media platform gets shut down and you have to go to the metaverse, like are people going to come with you? What do you stand for? And I think that's such an interesting question because it sounds like what's really important, and maybe I'm misunderstanding you. You can help me understand here that what is crucial to really being successful online as a creator is having, if you can, a unique point of view on whatever it is your market, your niche, or whatever it is that you're in. So it's like being able to understand what's going on in that space and then what is your point of view on it that people like resonate with.
100%. It's what's the reason for following? Like, are you just someone who people follow and you just happen to come up on their newsfeed? Or are you someone that people like seek out? That when they see your stuff, they're sharing you, they'll, if you host an event, are they coming to your event? Are they showing up for you? And listen, even the event example, I understand that can be a commitment at times. Like I get that, but I'll just give an example on the top end of the spectrum. Like girl with no job, she sells out arenas. Like I mean, like she, if something happened to her social media, she'd be fine. She has the personal, right? That's on a large scale. On a small scale example, though, like, and there are small niche creators who like, I think people care about things they have to say, and I can see this because if you look at the most interesting creators to me right now, like they have, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, nothing crazy, like in today, but like if you look at their video views and like their comments, like they're doing 500,000 views, like it's coming from places of not their followers. Like to me that's evidence that their people care what they have to say, whatever the reason might be, regardless of my belief on it, whether if it's comedy, whether it's health information, whether it's fitness, or maybe they're just controversial or political. I don't know what the rhyme and the reason is, it doesn't matter. What I am saying though is there's a fundamental way to kind of look at these profiles online and be like, that's why, I know I can make a list, say I could tell you if they left this platform and they went to the metaverse, or this went, people will follow them and they'll be there. without them having to even redirect it there either. Because people like whatever that big platform is, they'll just search you in the handle or find you, right? Like because they have to hear what you have to say. And if you don't have that impact on people, it might be, and there's going to be a large percentage of people like that. It might be challenging. Um, the other thing you can look at as well too is like what are their followings on multiple platforms, right? There's people that have large Instagram followings and no TikTok followings. Like that explains a lot to me, right? If they can't move traffic over, that typically does tell me a lot. Or they're just not doing enough on the other platform, but they should be. And that's something I'd also coach for any of my clients is to have multiple platforms and show validity and credibility to what your personal brand is, right? At the end of the day, it's just you're trying to create an arsenal or a resume of my personal brand's important to people. I have something to say, and not just the numbers, but like any number of people would come follow me, and that's valuable. Every single person that wants to go follow you is valuable. Um, so that's just from a pure business standpoint. This is not from a like a wolf perspective or I had people call me like the wolf of Instagram. Like I'm not the wolf of Instagram. Like I'm just calling it as it is for how to value the behind the scenes stuff. And these are the conversations that I don't think are being had on social media because uh, I think there's a lot of uh, it's too consumer centric, or the B2B centric is getting there for sure, but I think the social media world in general, I think it's still very consumer centric. Uh, I think these conversations need to be had more. This could be a whole new podcast with you, but like we talk about like phone addiction, but like it makes me laugh because I see people like Simon Sinek, because I agree with it, but like Simon Sinek will literally make a social media post about, well, it's a problem that you have a phone addiction, but I'm like, you're literally selling through social media, like it's just funny. We have this conundrum about it, but like we're all in it. And I don't disagree with it, but I'm simply the guy that just follows the market. Like I don't think it's a good idea to drink soda. Like I think it's horrible for you. But the fact of the matter is people just there's more Coca-Cola beverages sold than anything else. Like people want to drink soda. As a businessman, as a marketer, as someone like Warren Buffett who holds stock in it, like what are you not going to sell it if people, and it's kind of an ethical problem. And I would love to
Right.
try to push for people to not drink soda, but I just think there's just too much demand for it. And I don't think people, so it's
Well, the
the same
cocaine, I'm
argument with
sure.
social media. What's that?
Right. The cocaine at the early stages of Coca-Cola, I'm sure helped with getting people hooked and driving the
Yeah.
sales there.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, no, that makes a lot of
I
sense. And
would
it
love to
does
sell
sound like,
healthy things. I would love to have the same
right.
concept, the same business. My point is the same business model. And you could clip me and I could look terrible when you clip this the wrong way because also it happens. But the collective message I would love people is if you can take the personal brand, the people connecting directly with people and not do a corporate machine, which is a beautiful concept. It's so beautiful because like now people get to be held accountable for their belief systems. That's the whole fundamental ideology behind this. And it doesn't have to just be through a phone. Like the phones enabled us to do that. It gave power to people to do that, right? Like if I wanted to send a message out to 100,000 people, I could only do that through NBC, right?
Right.
I had a gatekeeper. And people did that and they got very big, like Oprah or Dr. Phil, right? Ellen DeGeneres, that's what they did. They wanted to send a message, but in today's world, you don't need to have that platform. Everybody has that, and that's a beautiful concept. It just can we find a way to make that more healthy? And it's
Right.
hard without technology. And maybe the metaverse is the thing where we could create something that integrates more into your lifestyle better. Like I don't know, but there's a beautiful element to this space, and people want to make it it's terrible stigma, but it's something that I think like the world wasn't really ready for, and we're seeing this in the political sphere. And this could be a whole other podcast, but
I
um,
know. Yeah. I'm like
when
literally
you
from
really
like
analyze
Neuralink.
it,
I want, yeah. Right.
yeah, when you analyze it though, it's an exciting concept to like the world's never been this connected, and we're not
Yeah.
really handling information well, and we're more divided than ever. We're more accessible than ever, right? We're not, on the flip side, I think that NBC and these platforms like just filtering information to us kind of maybe didn't make us go as crazy, especially whether it was skewed or whether it was propaganda or whatever it was. Like it kind of nobody felt the need to like panic. But like now with everything out, even like the wars, like you're getting like direct Snapchats from a war scene, and people are seeing
Yeah.
that. Like that's crazy. People aren't
Yeah.
ready for this. So
No.
it's just a radical version of what my point is though. It's just in terms of what we do. We sell products online. Like it's friendly. People can't make recommendations that aren't actually accurate because it will come back to bite them in the long run. They have to have affinity for it. Um, they have to be holding accountable for it. The recommendations. It's a really good way of, I think, building the economy, in my opinion, and it's an accurate scorekeeping system as well, right? Like the people that you reach and the people that you can make an impact on. There's a scoreboard for followers, for sales, the whole thing. And to me, it just makes the most sense that this is something that's just going to continue to expand and grow. And I'm all here for all the people that are just kind of slowly dipping their toes and I'll help brands. Like I tell them, like, start small. I'm not going to sell you on $100,000 sponsorship package. Like, just go talk to this micro creator. Just send them some product. Just get your feet wet in it. When they post a product, go see the feedback. Like, learn about the space. Maybe test out a few campaigns. But see what happens, and then call me, because when you're ready and you're serious, like, we can really help. And here's an example of A, B, C, D, E, and F brands who only did creator marketing and got to where you got in 100 years. They did it in about 2 years. Like, I mean, and those are the numbers. So, and Logan Paul from the creator side is a perfect example as well. He built up his following in 2 years. That is a case study that will live on forever, and I'll always reference it. I don't care what you think of the guy. It's beyond insane. Whether impressive too, but if it wasn't impressive because he had first mover advantage, it's still insane just to think about what happened in that situation. One person. It was not a company or a network. So I just bring this up all the time because it's super important to understand the power that people have right now. It can't be denied.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what you think about Logan Paul, I think you're right. The results do speak for themselves, and he's like a household name at this point. And he was just like a kid, him and his brother in their bedroom making silly YouTube videos, and
Yes.
they're now massive. Who are some other creators that you think people should study and learn from that are really crushing it with their strategy right now?
Um, I think a lot of people will call me generic. It's just because it's also the way they do things, which is why I reference them. I know, and if you hear it from somewhere else, great, but it's because it's true. But like Mr. Beast, for example, and I'll tell you why I'm citing Mr. Beast. It's not just because he has the largest YouTube channel. It's the way he thought about his YouTube channel is why he was so successful, because he didn't just see himself as someone who had to make content for people and just be a creator or an influencer. He actually understood the same transition I'm talking about, which is that he's a network now. He's his own business owner. He's an entrepreneur. And he was a business person, but the reason it did so well is because every time he earned a dollar, he reinvested into his channel. And when I say reinvested, he didn't reinvest it into just making his own product line or reinvesting into some growth hacker that was going to help market his stuff. He actually reinvested in the actual content. Like, he looked at himself as a show or a movie, and he was, he'd invest in set pieces, or he'd invest in people to come on as additional cast. Like, he looked at his YouTube channel as MVC, and that's why he became MVC overnight, right? Because he understood his medium, and it wasn't as much specific to who he is as a person or maybe what was actually in the content, as much as what it told me was I simply was a business person who took the dollars I made, reinvested it. It just kept growing. And every time it grew, I put more money. It was logical, right? Every time it grows, you get more money, just keep putting it back in. And he was one of the only YouTube channels that did that, right? There's not that many examples of that. And there are some others. There's a lot of, but that it's just because people would say, why are you investing in a YouTube channel? That was the stigma. Like Mr. Beast, like Jimmy, this is just a YouTube channel. And he broke down that stigma so hard, and he's got a really powerful platform. And it's a fantastic case study for and this is what we're trying to do at RSA. But when you look at it like that, how can we create infrastructure for creators to do the same thing? Like, what if they don't have money to do that? Like, how can we make all these channels similar? And why is it just so low scale production? I know it's more organic and stuff, but can we make higher scale production quality stuff? And could it be movies and shows? Does it have to only be released through streaming? Can it be released through social media? If it can't be released through social media, can we do trailers and market it more through social media instead of commercials where the cinema is struggling? Like, maybe it just needs to be marketed better. So all these questions, the questions that we're asking here at RSA, and how we could make things better. And if we're not the ones leading the charge, which we shouldn't be, but we'll do it if we have to. I don't really mind putting out those ideas. I think it'd be great for cinema to like, leverage creators more for their movies. Like, I don't even know what's coming out on Friday night anymore. I should know with everything we have. So just things to think about. Um,
Well, this has been a super fun conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I appreciate you being on the show. For anyone else who wants to learn more about what you do, continue the conversation with you, where should they go?
so you can follow us on Instagram, Rising Suns Agency, or our website, risingsunsagency.com. We have a lot of people that are on LinkedIn. I can name names, but I think you'll find us if you search us. So pretty accessible. You could also email us at info@risingsunsagency.com. And um, we're a small team, but we're responsive. We're eager about the space. Doesn't matter if you're a brand, an agency, a creator, a consumer, or just someone interested in talking about the space. We'd love to have the conversation with you. So don't be shy and feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining. We enjoyed having you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thanks, Guy. Bye.